Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show. Players have already reported for camp. One of them was Kirk Cousins, reporting 2 days early, among a few other veterans who reported. In a total, 34 reported yesterday. The rest will report tomorrow. And we're going to talk a little bit about QB1 as Mike Sando's NFL quarterback article came out today, where he interviews 50 personnel people and has each of them rank these players into tiers, and then he makes a list. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the new tight end from Iowa that just signed with the Vikings, Shaun Beyer. And then we're going to talk about the players that we're most excited to see at training camp here over the next few weeks. And I'm going to give my Mr. Mankato pick. So stick around on a wonderful episode of The Real Forno Show.
Welcome to The Real Forno Show. Writer at NBC Sports Edge. Contributor at USA Today's Vikings Wire. Sports Illustrated's All Seahawks. And founder of Substack Run and Shooter. As well as a member of Climbing the Pocket.
Dave, hello. How are
Hello.
you?
I am good. Another wonderful day. We had a cool front move through. It only got to 101 today.
I was going to say that sounds pretty wonderful considering you're down in Austin. We were in the mid 80s today, and well, I had my third to last day at the liquor store. So let me tell you, I am very excited to move forward and continue to do this in a full-time space. It is going to be awesome. But Dave, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Next week, we're going to have training camp practices to talk about. Let me tell you, I am excited for it because we have waited so long. We have talked about so many different topics outside of the actual games and practice and just trying to figure out what this team is going to be. And we are so close to finding that out. It's a pretty exciting feeling right now.
It is. Hopes up. Everything's sunshine and rosy. There doesn't seem to be anybody that's seriously injured yet, knock on wood. Other teams are reporting to camp and players are going instantly on the pup. That doesn't seem to be the case for the Vikings as of now. Let's hope it stays that way. That sports science stuff actually works and they all stay healthy. But I'm interested in what you think about not only did the rookies report yesterday on Sunday, but some of the vets did too.
The way I look at it, Dave, is it wasn't. I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. It was a good thing. You hear a lot about, hey, the culture has changed. We're really, really excited. Well, sometimes it can be really difficult to fully believe that because, hey, a new coach comes in. What are you going to do? Call him a piece of trash? No, you're not going to bury him publicly. You're going to say the right things, at least initially. And then once things really start ramping up, then you're going to figure out, hey, is this guy real or is he a fraud? But seeing players report to camp early, when you see a lot of veterans doing everything they can to report late, we have Will Compton, veteran linebacker, just announced that he's not going to report to anybody's day one of training camp. Brett Favre spent his 2 Viking seasons trying to avoid Mankato in training camp. So to see veterans intentionally try to get there early really speaks volumes about this kind of quote-unquote culture that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell are trying to build. And it really is completely different from what we saw with Mike Zimmer. And I don't necessarily think Zimmer had a bad culture. It obviously soured towards the end of his tenure, but this is a really good sign. And Vikings fans should be really excited that players want to be in the building longer than they have to be.
Yes, it is a good sign. That's better than it was last year. And we want better.
Absolutely. We don't just want better. We want great. We want a Super Bowl before we die, as our friends at Purple Daily like to say. We want to win a title. And it's really that simple. We want to be one of the best teams in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. And in order to get there, something had to change. Yes. And the head coach, could that be the change? who knows? We can hope that this is the right change to really put us in the right direction. It may not be. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what change might need to be made as I am scrolling through Mike Sando's article. If you don't know who Mike Sando is, he is an NFL journalist for The Athletic. And every year, he talks to 50 different personnel around the league from different spaces. You get scouting, you get general managers, you get coaches. And what he does is he asks each person to label quarterbacks into tiers. And there's obviously tier 1 is, hey, I can drive any car to the finish line. An analogy we kind of used earlier this month. Tier 2, you give them a Ferrari, it's all fully souped up, they can take you to the finish line. Tier 3 is where our own Kirk Cousins sits. You give him a souped up Ferrari and you hope he can finish. And he is the top quarterback in tier 3 at number 15 overall. And actually, he had a slight increase from last year, going from 2.66 on average to 2.72. He is the top quarterback in tier 3 after being, I believe, the third or fourth quarterback in tier 3 behind the likes of Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, and I think Carson Wentz was in that tier as well. So when we're talking about Kirk Cousins and what tier 3 means, so tier 3 quarterback is a legitimate starter but needs a heavier running game and or defensive component to win. A lower volume drop back passing offense suits him best. That is how they describe tier 3. Does that not describe Kirk Cousins? It absolutely describes Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to take a little victory lap because this is exactly who we on the show, we've been saying he is. He is an average starting quarterback, and this puts him slightly above average as there are 32 starting quarterbacks, and he is at 15. I like Kirk Cousins, his talent. I like his calmish demeanor. He doesn't really panic, but he also, at the same time, he's not really a fiery leader. But there are real holes to his game. And we've talked about it time and time again on the show. How is he going to rewire his brain in order to really take that next step with Kevin O'Connell? I have major, major doubts he's going to be able to do that. And it seems like coaches believe the same thing. One GM said, I think he's one of the more accurate passers in the league. For whatever reason, in big moments, big games, he's not able to get it done. Now, because Kevin O'Connell is going there and their offense is going to open up, they'll maximize what he is. Is he Stafford, who had just been in some bad situations? I think he's just a step below. And I would agree with that because I don't think anybody's going to sit here and say that Kirk Cousins is a more talented quarterback than Matthew Stafford, because that's just simply not the case. The issue with Stafford has always been the mental game. Can you overcome some of his issues with like how he processes, and he's going to make stupid throws because that's just what Matt Stafford does. He's a gunslinger. He's going to make the big boy throws. Hey, Adam, good to see you. My mailman at my liquor store. Very, very nice gentleman. Really have enjoyed talking to him over the last year. Hey, I appreciate you jumping on. So, Kirk Cousins is a little different. He is too conservative. He won't make the big boy throw in fear of throwing that interception. Sometimes you have to have that balance. You have to be willing to make that big boy throw and risk the interception because on 3rd and 8, and sometimes an interception when trying to make a big play is okay instead of just throwing a 3-yard out to CJ Ham. And I know it's not always a 3-yard out to CJ Ham, but we've seen it too often where he just takes it does. And we've seen it time and time again where he just takes that really safe dump off throw. And it's very frustrating because Kirk has all the talent. Mm-hmm. He has the talent, Dave, and he does not want to use it. And it's inherently frustrating as a fan and as an analyst that he won't. And this right here, we really just need to put this argument to bed. Kirk Cousins is not the 6th quarterback in the National Football League. If you truly believe he is the 6th best quarterback in the National Football League, I don't know what to tell you. But there's something going on in your head that is just inherently wrong.
Arm talent, I would say yes, he is up there.
I don't think he's even close. Like, if you're talking arm talent,
As
I don't think he
he can
makes the
throw a
top
deep
10.
ball, he can throw on target.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that he is extremely good at. Wasn't he number 1 or 2 in deep targets accuracy last year?
Mm-hmm.
He is good at that. The problem that I've always stated is when things go off script, that messes with his mind, and
Yeah.
that's when things start to go to default. All right, oh no, something's wrong. Oh no, I'm about to be sacked. Oh no, this. And if he gets sacked a lot, he starts seeing ghosts. And then it goes to, all right, quick default, 3 down, check down to CJ Ham.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe physically he's talented enough. It's the mental part that I hope Kevin O'Connell helps him with. Free that up. Free the thinking. Free the monster that can be Kirk Cousins for this season. We'll see if it happens. Kirk's going to be playing for his next contract, obviously, even though we've got him under contract for 2023 as well. But he's going to be trying to put something on tape. If Kevin O'Connell can unlock that beast mode when it comes up here, he's got the body and the skills to match that. Which a lot of those quarterbacks in the third tier, or some and even the second tier, don't have that. So that's why I think it's going to be real interesting to see. And we probably won't see much in the preseason because most likely he's not going to get a lot of play in those preseason games. But once the real games start kicking off, we'll see. But we'll get hints of it in these practices. How is he dealing with the situations? Because we know he's got valuable receivers that can catch the ball. So I'm looking forward. You asked in a pre-show, what are you excited about? I'm excited to see if there's any changes in Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, I don't disagree with he's middle of the pack. And that's because of his mental, how he deals with stress and things that are off script. But physically, he could be one of the best if Kevin O'Connell can unlock whatever it is that gives him some temporary blocks. Jonas, good to see you from Germany, buddy. If he says he's a robot, he likes to execute that. He's very, planned. We talked about how he plans out his day in like 10-minute increments or whatever it is. He's got it all on a spreadsheet. He's got to be able to make all that instinctual on the football field. Can Kevin O'Connell get him there? I hope so.
I hope so too. And I kind of want to address a few things in the comments before we move on and talk about Shaun Beyer. Andrew, are you okay with him throwing 18 to 22 picks this year? I don't think that's a possibility. And here's why. Matthew Stafford is a gunslinger who makes bad decisions. And that wasn't going to change coming from Detroit. The thing is, what they did in LA with the Rams is they maximized the good ones. And they lived with the bad ones, knowing that, hey, he's going to make these bad decisions. We have the defense we believe that can help him overcome those. And he's going to make enough good ones in those similar situations where it's going to balance out and we're going to be okay. The thing with Cousins, he doesn't have that mentality. And if he decides to open up and become more of a calculated gunslinger than he already is, because we've seen it. We've seen how Kirk Cousins can be a gunslinger. Remember the tie in Green Bay at Lambeau? That was a gunslinger version of Kirk Cousins. He can do it. He's shown he can do it, but he won't do it on a consistent basis. And that is the big issue here. I don't think he's going to throw 18 to 22 picks. I think if he threw 12, let's kind of set that benchmark. If Kirk Cousins throws 12 picks, to me that tells a couple things. One, they're really opening up this offense and giving Kirk the ability to make those big boy throws. And two, he's willing to make the throws on some form of consistent basis. Because if you look, as you kind of mentioned, Dave, he's one of the top deep ball accuracy passers in the National Football League. Well, the more deep balls you throw, the more interceptions you're going to inherently have because those odds are just going to go up and up and up. And that's okay, and it's to be expected. Brett Favre pushed the ball down the field like a maniac through a lot of picks. You're going to have that, and that's okay to a certain extent, as long as you're not throwing like 4 a game. Like, right. There has to be some form of balance. Jonas talking about how he's a robot. And that's what we talked about on the show over and over and over and over again, Dave. It's one of the reasons why he'll never be this sixth ranked quarterback in the National Football League, because he wants everything to be perfect. Jay Gruden talked about it in Washington, and then it was talked about consistently there and consistently here. You can't expect perfection at the quarterback position. The whole point of being a good quarterback, Dave, is to make the imperfect work. And you're going to have imperfect all the time. You have to make it work. You have to work outside of structure. Whether that be, hey, I'm going to be Dan Marino and maneuver in the pocket and just be an absolute wizard at maneuvering just within this tiny bubble, almost like he's standing in a hula hoop and he's just dancing around and making it work. Or you're a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen, where you're going to run around and scramble and make those things happen. You have to be one of those guys. Or you can be a little bit in between. Kirk kind of falls in that in between. He's not a complete statue, but he's really not a mobile guy that you're going to want to scramble to make things work in the passing game. He's good on controlled boots, controlled play action, where he's on the move and making those throws. But you don't want him to scramble and do it. Like, they're just two different things and two completely different mindsets. And when you want things to be perfect, like Kirk does, you just can't expect him to be able to take those things to the next level. And that's why how his brain is wired is so inherently fascinating to me, and how it's going to work with Kevin O'Connell, because he's not able to do those things. He's not able to, hey, I'm going to roll out. I know Tyreek Hill is going to be downfield in this spot. I'm just going to chuck it there. He's just going to go get it. That's the kind of chemistry and belief that Patrick Mahomes had with his receiving core. He knew, and he had the balls to make those quote-unquote stupid throws, and he makes them look easy, effortless, and simple. Kirk doesn't have that gene in him, and I think we need to really temper some of those expectations. Drew puts in the chat 38 touchdowns, 4,700 yards, 9 picks, 6 rushing yards. Oh, yep. That sounds like a Dan Marino stat line if I've ever heard one. We need to temper the expectations for him to really take a step, because Dave, you've heard it your entire life, and so have I. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Kirk Cousins is 34. He's been a starting quarterback for the majority of the last, 20 years of his life? How are we going to expect him to not expect perfection? Like, we need to temper those expectations and hope that within the constructs of the Kevin O'Connell offense, he's able to manipulate the situation enough so Kirk can really take a step as far as getting easy, more open throws. Look how open Cooper Kupp was last year. He was inarguably the best receiver in the National Football League. He was wide open half the time because it was designed. If you get Justin Jefferson open like that all the time, Kirk's going to make those throws. Why? Because they're going to be easy. They're going to be simple. He's not going to have to worry about staying risk averse, because there's not going to be a lot of risk to it. And that was something somebody else mentioned in the chat earlier. Risk averse. Mm-hmm. That's what he is.
As long as he doesn't have a center in his lap.
Yeah, and Garrett Bradbury is somebody that I know people that we really respect have a high opinion on. And they did a great job last year of making Brian Allen a good center, which is pretty impressive considering he had a lot of the same issues that Garrett Bradbury did. Now, I don't know if Bradbury can ever take a step. He's got short arms. He does not have a lot of sand in the pants. Dave, he just gets trucked. I don't know if maybe he just needs to work every single set with his butt at a 90-degree angle. Like, no. So then he can't get shoved up, no. And he's the one doing the shoving. Like, well, but you see my point, because if he's down low enough, he can't get trucked because they're not going to be able to get low enough to lift him. And I don't...
Technique. Oh, you improve his technique, and he's going to do better. Mm-hmm. He's also put on some weight, supposedly. That's going to help. But if he improves his technique, and that comes through coaching, the right type of coaching, if they can improve that, he will do better. Then also you have Ezra Cleveland on his left, who takes a step up on his play, and then whoever it is on his right, I have my favorite, but whoever wins that right guard can hopefully help fortify that, and hopefully that's part of the thinking, the whole, Kevin O'Connell and how he wants to run the offense. that will help Kirk Cousins if they can fortify that. Purple Haze, Ezra didn't look all that great. He was adequate. He was fair, and he was only in his second year. So, and he was improved over right guard position. He was drafted as a tackle. He became a decent left guard. Well, that's improvement. Now he's going into his third season, first one coming back in the same position. I expect an even further step. And generally with linemen, it takes 3 years minimum before they start to really get it. And then they're not reaching their primes until their upper 20s. So I'm quite pleased with Ezra Cleveland. I don't think Ezra is going to be the issue. I worry about who's going to be playing right guard. That's one of those things I'm excited to see is the competition at right guard.
Oh, I'm excited to see the competition at right guard. I really want to see if Chris Reed gets an opportunity to play center, and we've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a really fascinating one. But I've said plenty about Kirk Cousins. Honestly, I could talk about Kirk Cousins for an entire show, but I don't think the people want to hear that for the bazillionth time. We're going to continue talking about the future, and that's kind of what we did with Kirk Cousins and this quarterback tier list. It's kind of projecting out the future for this year. But at the same time, Vikings signed a player today.
Yes, they did.
Tight end Shaun Beyer from the University of Iowa. He spent a lot of his time behind Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson, both of whom went in the first round in the 2019 draft. Like, really, really good football players. Beyer was able to start in 2020 after they had left, and it was a tough one because Beyer, like you could say, hey, he didn't really get a lot of opportunity because of who was in front of him, but at the same time, he just didn't end up being very good, and that's why he was available. Could he be somebody? Genuinely don't know. I have not had a chance to watch his film. What I do understand about him is he's an okay-ish route runner. He's not a phenomenal athlete, but he can high point a football. He tested an 83rd percentile of relative athletic score, really good short shuttle, okay 10-yard split, good size. I don't know if there's anything really special about him. And we're going to see more and more and more as far as projecting out once we see some training camp practices. Yes, both Ingram and Booth did sign their rookie deals. I think the issue with Booth was some guaranteed money in year 4, which some second-round picks are getting now. And then Ingram, I think year 4.
Wow.
And then big deal. I think the highest was it wasn't Christian Watson. Who Logan Hall got $255,000 guaranteed in year 4. It's big deal. And then
just getting guarantees passed into 3 years for somebody drafted in the second round is a lot. But normally it's a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years. It's amazing. I looked into Shaun Beyer. Shaun Beyer on the players on the screen is number 88. He played a grand total of 61 snaps last year, his rookie year. He was targeted on 3 passes. He caught 2 of them. One of them, where this picture was taken, he scored a touchdown on. That's it. His run blocking grades were pathetic. His pass blocking grades were decent. But you got to remember when you're looking at a tight end in PFF and looking at their grades, and you see pass blocking, it can mean pass blocking at the line, right, protecting your quarterback, but it could also be, because they have the receiver component of it, could be downfield pass blocking like a receiver does. So at 61 snaps isn't a big sample size whatsoever. He made it to the Broncos practice squad last year, and they obviously released him at the end of the year. New coach didn't want him. Vikings just picked him up.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how he fits. I don't know if he'll make the team. I would suspect that he doesn't. But tight end is a very, very fluid position after Irv Smith Jr. Really, if anybody makes the team outside of Irv Smith Jr., it would not be a surprise.
Mhm.
Let's kind of move forward, Dave. Players that we are excited to see in training camp, and there's a few guys that I mentioned to you earlier today, and the first one I want to talk about is Andrew Booth Jr. Um, I'm really excited to see what this young man can do, especially because he is cleared to practice. He basically played his entire career at Clemson with a sports hernia. A very, very, very impressive feat. And he was a ball hawk, really good at uh, doing a back pedal and then exploding to make a pass breakup. Really, really cool, really good player, and he's got ball skills. He's also has size, like speed. He has a whole package. Can he keep it together? Can he stay healthy enough? There were some concerns with his knee, which he had surgery on as a younger player. I believe he was 18. Um, to my knowledge, that shouldn't become an issue. Will it be an issue? I genuinely don't know. I am not a doctor, but from everything I know, that should be in the clear because it was like a patella tendon, and they kind of figured it out early. Booth is going to be competing with players like Cameron Dantzler, Patrick Peterson, Chandon Sullivan. He's going to be competing with those guys for playing time, and nothing's going to be given to him. He's a second-round pick. They have two incumbents ahead of him, so he's going to have to earn everything he gets, which at this point in his development and where the Vikings are at, I think that's a good thing. Not having to rely on him is a net positive because you don't necessarily want to count on a rookie right away, especially a corner, because the entire point of corner is to lose as little as possible because you're going to get beat. You're going to lose battles. And that can really destroy the psyche of a young man to consistently lose early on in your career when you don't need to be playing. So I'm very intrigued to see how they bring him along, how they utilize him. Will they be comfortable putting him in the slot? Something he didn't really do at Clemson, but I believe he has some of the tools in order to be an effective slot corner. I just don't know if it's necessarily the best way to try and develop this young man. How excited are you to see Andrew Booth Jr., Dave?
Oh, I'm really curious because if anything, if he hits, even if he takes a while to develop and get on the field, if he hits, that locks down that important corner position for a while because I think this will probably be Patrick Peterson's last year with the Vikings, and he could step into that. He does have the ability from the what I saw and and all my prep for the draft to become a lockdown corner in this league. I hope he reaches that potential. So I'm excited to see what he does. I'm also excited to see Dantzler, and I'm excited to see a reinvigorated Pat Peterson. I want to see the best corners possible out there. And if he could play nickel, that's a tough spot to play. But I wish him well. If he could play it better than Sullivan, by all means. If he could play it better than Hairston, by all means. Well, like I said on my show, I don't care if it's Sullivan, Hairston, Booth, or if they bring Bynum or Scene down into that spot. I want the best, when they play nickel, the best 5 defensive backs we've got out there to achieve the most optimum defensive play.
Dave, I 100% agree. You want the best players to be on the field, but you just have to be careful with corners, offensive linemen, and quarterbacks to make sure that you don't put them in positions to fail and ruin their psyche. You have to make sure that they are mentally ready for that because, like you said, especially with corner, you are going to lose. And you have to be able to shake it off more than any position in football.
And plus, Shane is talking about he hopes to see Booth on one side, Dantzler on the other, and have Pat P come in relief. Zimmer did start a corner rotation. I think that is a wise move to keep legs fresh, especially going into the latter part of the games.
Yeah, 100% agree. Let's move on to my number 2, Dave. And then once I kind of run through my list, I want to hear about yours because okay. I know you are. Oh, I know you do, and you have to pick some non-round bellies. That's the whole point of this. All right.
That's not fair.
Hey, It is. You have to deal with it. The second one for me is Jalen Naylor, the rookie wide receiver out of Michigan State. One thing that was really intriguing to me is how this regime was going to treat BC Johnson. And Locked On Vikings host Luke Braun pointed this out to me because I thought Naylor would get the advantage over BC because he is the pick of the staff. They picked him. This regime picked him. And nobody is left from when they picked BC Johnson. And Johnson himself is coming off of a torn ACL. But Johnson has already been running as wide receiver 4. He has the support of Kirk Cousins. And Johnson was a very capable player in his first couple of seasons. He would have been a contributor last year if it weren't for the torn ACL. But Naylor has arguably the best deep threat ability. Now, can Thielen go deep? Yes. Not as well as he used to, but he can. Jefferson can too. That is also not his bread and butter. The bread and butter for Naylor is a deep ball target. He's got 4.4 speed. He has the ability to be quick, separate, and break away, and then he knows how to track the football. Naylor using that ability can really be a big impact on this offense because of what he is. And you need that guy to take the top off of the defense considering the receivers that you have. Justin Jefferson is an explosive style possession receiver. That's kind of how I'm describing it. Because he's not a true possession guy. Like late stage Chris Carter was a possession guy. He's going to get open in the short and intermediate levels of the field and get you first downs. Jefferson is more explosive than that. But he kind of does some of the same things, except he just works farther down the field. When you're doing deep shots with him, it's more like deep overs. You're not doing so many go routes. You're trying to find ways to get him the ball in space in the middle of the field. And that's why I kind of consider him a explosive style of that possession wide receiver. Naylor's going to take the top off, and that's what he's going to be great at. He's not going to be so great at the intermediate stuff. He can take screens. He can do slants. And he's going to go. And that was one of the things I kind of had with Jamar Chase in the 2021 draft class. That was basically him. Slants, goes, screens. And that was pretty much all he did. And he was so great at it. And he's been able to develop that aspect of his game. Chris Carter was never a true burner, but he was never slow. I would consider him fast. So there. Yeah. I don't know.
And Fun with Ted and Drew is getting some love. Vikings Report. Obviously in the chat. It's another fun show to watch twice a week. And if you like to laugh and you get into old 70s and 80s sitcoms, you will bust up. Those guys kept me in stitches for years.
Oh, yeah. And I got to say, Dave, they love the flow.
Yeah.
And I know Toon says doesn't believe that I don't do anything, but this is natural. Like I blow dry it, I use hairspray, shampoo, conditioner. That's it. Super fun. But as we continue to move on, please do watch Vikings Report. They're a good group of guys. And I had a great time when I was on their show. We talked about a lot of flair.
And Toots puts that show together and wrangles those cats like no other. She does a great job.
Oh, yeah. And they aren't easy cats to wrangle. They are wild men.
Trust me, I know.
All the best ways. Oh, I know you do, Dave. So let's kind of continue here moving forward.
Who's your third one?
My third one. Drum roll, please. Christian Darrisaw. We didn't get a lot from Darrisaw last year. He's really started at week 6. And after that point, he had some success. And he had some flaws as well. But the real issue with Darrisaw was we didn't get to see him in camp. We didn't get to see him in preseason. And he didn't get a lot of run early because of that core muscle surgery. And that was something that Andrew Booth Jr. had a second procedure on. One of the reasons why he still wasn't cleared until just recently. That's why he didn't test. So Darrisaw I want to see how he does in camp. I want to see him progress. I want to see him fight against Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith, rep in and rep out. I want to see him grow, develop, win battles, lose battles. When you lose those battles, how are you going to come back from it? Are you going to use the same methods? Are you going to evolve how you're trying to attack the defender? And are you going to be able to implement that with success? I want to see all those things. And the only way to really see it is to be out on the field. That's something that Darrisaw is finally going to be this camp. And he's going to be able to hopefully take that next step. And I'm really excited to kind of see where it goes because Brandon Thorne, Trench Warfare, if you haven't checked it out, Brandon Thorne is the foremost expert on offensive linemen among everybody in the market. All right. Brandon Thorne is the best. He has Brian O'Neill as the number 5 right tackle in football. That's high praise. O'Neill, we know, is a great football player. If Darrisaw can be a fringe top 10 left tackle, the Vikings have a bookend tackles that are really, really good for the first time since Stussy and Stringer, because Loadholt and McKinney were never quite at a level where you could call them that. Loadholt was always serviceable and capable, and quite frankly, looked a little bit like Christian Darrisaw, except with about 20 more cheeseburgers. But like they never really got to that peak, and I think Darrisaw and O'Neill can get to where Stussy and Stringer were at their peaks. And that's a very, very exciting thing because as much as Vikings fans like to kind of crap on Todd Stussy, Dave, he was really good. He just, at the end of his career, he got a lot of those holding penalties. And then Stringer, obviously, really, really sad and unfortunate that he passed, one, way too early, and two, in the way that he did.
Yep.
Because he had a chance to potentially, it's maybe a little hyperbolic, but he was on a track where if he kept progressing, he had an opportunity to make the Hall of Fame because he was that kind of talent. He had already had that kind of success, and he was so young. Purple Haze talks about this, and I want to get your opinion, Dave, because this is, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand this, and I want your opinion. Purple Haze says, don't overplay Christian Darrisaw in preseason just to be safe. Now, I don't, what's your take on that? Because I don't really see it being an issue. We have the core muscle injury already taken care of. It's in theory not coming back, and that's something that should be a lingering concern. Like, I pulled my hamstring 3 weeks ago, and I have to really be careful. Like, do you believe that the Vikings should really be that cautious with Darrisaw outside of just your normal usage of a first teamer in preseason?
No, I think he's perfectly fine. There's and I advocated yesterday, even if they don't play a whole lot in the preseason, the first stringers, because that's what, Kevin O'Connell came from. Don't play your starters a lot. I said yesterday, I do want that starting line to play a lot, or to play significant time. I want them playing longer than just, when Kirk Cousins is back there. Because, one, it's going to be good for Mond if he comes in and takes snaps with the first team. 2, it takes time for the offensive linemen to gel and come together and get that whole telepathy going and the side vision and knowing where everybody's going to build that chemistry, if you want to call it that. It takes time. And there's only 12 padded practices in the preseason in training camp. And you got the 3 games. That's not a lot of time for linemen to get everything into the groove. That's why football on week 1 is rusty, right, across the NFL. And then week 2, it's a little less rusty. Week 3, a little less, right? And you don't settle in until week 4, 5, or 6. Well, if you can get the big guys settled in earlier than that, you have an advantage. And since there will be at least one new player on that offensive line, I want that extra time. I'm not worried about Darrisaw and his injuries. I'm not worried about anybody on that offensive line and their injuries. They should all be healthy as of right now. Nothing that's, nagging. type stuff that can flare up. I want to see them play, which brings me to the right guard position, which I'm excited to
Mm-hmm.
watch. I have a favorite player. We talked about Booth being a second rounder. Mine is Ed Ingram. Watching the tape on this kid, he has so much good technique, basis, the basics and technique that a lot of players don't have. Yes, he has some flaws. Yes, he can get better on his punches. Yes, he can do other things. But the technique, where he keeps his weight and how he keeps his body and everything else will help him. How he keeps squared up to the line most of the time. All that helps. I want to see this kid, because I think he can, win that right guard spot. And I think he has the ability to be extremely, extremely good for this team for a long time. That's my primary, what I'm really excited to see. Now, are there other positions? Yes, I can't all pick round bellies, but I want to see Zadarius Smith. I want to see Daniil Hunter coming back healthy. I think those two are going to be just playing off each other, and it's going to wreak all sorts of havoc. Darisaw and O'Neal are going to have their hands full. Those are going to be cool battles to watch against those edges. Um, I want to see how Hicks plays. I didn't see that many Cardinals games. I don't really know how good he is other than what I can see on, colored squares on PFF. I want to see how he impacts that defense. Barr is gone. We now have the linebacker duo for the most part of Kendricks and Hicks. Yes, I know there's three linebackers that are supposed to be back there, middle linebackers, interior linebackers. But I expect a lot of times there'll be a nickel, and the linebacker's the one that suffers. You have your draft choice out of Oklahoma that's probably going to be your third linebacker. So I'm looking to see that stuff excites me. How are those guys going to play? And then lastly, the whole Bynum and Scene thing. I think Scene's going to probably earn the starting position. But I think Bynum's good enough to earn the starting position. We know Hitman is borderline Hall of Fame. So it's going to be how Ed Donatel uses those guys. I can't wait to find out. It should be fun.
Oh, 100%. I am very excited for this training camp, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to have a ton of fun covering this team throughout the year. And I want to throw an interesting one here, kind of as we wrap this up. One battle that I'm really, really, really intrigued to see is how safety and nickel shape up. Because the Vikings could easily go with three safeties for those spots. And we could see a guy like Shannon Sullivan completely miss out because Cam Bynum was successful in the slot. You have Lewis Seen. And then Harrison Smith is obviously going to lock down one of those safety spots. How they utilize those players, especially with the ability to stay multiple, which in this 3-4 style defense, you want the ability to stay multiple because it keeps people guessing. If you're on the field and you have to think, you've already lost. You need to process so fast and understand what's going on real quick. And if you're able to confuse them with multiple styles of looks and how you run things, it's going to be inherently great.
Right. And if it's the three safeties and you don't know which one's coming down, or if two come down, which one's going back, throw on top of that Zadarius Smith in a rover position, lining up anywhere he wants to, right? And Daniil probably flip-flopping on the opposite side. It's going to cause headaches and offensive coordinators absolute headaches to try to figure out, what the heck is going on. It could be, besides fun to watch, if it works right, it could be absolutely special.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely could. And next week, we are going to talk a lot about the first week of training camp, and we're going to start getting ramped up for the Vikings' first preseason game, which I believe, Dave, is Thursday the 11th. Now, I could be wrong on that date, but that date resonates with me.
Let's see if I've got the schedule handy. I'm not quite. I don't think it was a Thursday.
Maybe
No.
Thursday the 11th was a Hall of Fame game.
No.
Yeah.
There is games, I think the 11th. Our first game is Sunday, August 14th.
Okay.
Well, it's one of the very last games of week 1 preseason. Hall of Fame game is what? It's the first week of August.
No, 100%. We're getting really close, and it's really exciting. And I want to pick your brain here on one thing before we go, because Kyler Murray just signed a big extension, and he got $160 million guaranteed. But the really fascinating part, Dave, is he has a independent study clause where he has to do 4 hours of independent study each week from the first week of training camp, first Monday of training camp, all the way through the final week of the season. Meaning, the Cardinals are going to give him something to study, and he has to do it. And he has to do it in the building. Dave, this is an unprecedented thing for a multitude of reasons. And I want to pull up a quote from Kyler Murray last year when he did an interview with the New York Times. And he said, I think I was blessed with the cognitive skills to just go out there and just see it before it happens. I'm not one of those guys who's going to sit there and kill myself watching film. I don't sit there for 24 hours and break down this team and that team, watch every game, because in my head, I see so much. Kyler Murray just told on himself, basically said, I don't grind film because I'm inherently talented. And this is something that when you are as talented as Murray, who is arguably the greatest high school football player of all time, and he was able to just beat people with his dominant arm athleticism. Now he's in the NFL. Like in college, he apparently didn't watch film either. Now that he's in the pros, he's still not doing it, and he's still successful because he's Kyler Murray and he has the all-world talent. Now, what do you think about this clause that was put in for him? He has to do it. And the really interesting thing is, if he doesn't do it for a week, they can void his contract. It defaults.
I think it's brilliant on the Cardinals. And if they believe that he doesn't study, and obviously you gave his quote saying he doesn't, that this will force him to do that, I think that's probably, in the long run, going to be a benefit for him because he will learn how to study. Makes you question how he got through school, taking biology 101. How are you going to pass it? Well, I'll just see the right answer. Sure. He got to study. I don't know. It's interesting. It may make him a better quarterback overall as he goes through his career. And that would be great for him, as long as it's not when he plays the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's an interesting clause. I think it's fantastic. And that'll give the Players Association something to argue about come the next contract, next CBA.
Which is interesting because Murray agreed to it. So I don't know how the Players Association is really going to fight this because it was agreed to by both parties. It wasn't like a poison pill, like where it's harm. Like, well, I get where you're coming from, Dave, but we're not.
They can argue for the next one that you can't put in something like that.
Yeah.
Which seems to me he's an employee of the Cardinals, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they say part of your job is to study 4 hours a week, you study. I mean, you run the liquor store for 3 more days. When you first started out, they were teaching you, you've got to learn these shelves. You've got to learn the way we do things. You've got to do. If you work for McDonald's, they send you to McDonald's to learn how, flip burgers, how to do this, I don't even think they flip them anymore. But back in the day, it was, this is how the machines work. This is how you clean the machines. You went through and you had to study. If they feel it's necessary for him to study, that he's lacked it, and that may be the difference between barely making the playoffs and going a long way, I think it's a great idea by the Cardinals. I applaud him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I want to give a shout out. Shane Jackson, first time tuning in, already liked and subscribed. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. If you like what we do here at Climbing the Pocket and the Daily Norseman, where we just tell you exactly what we think. We don't water it down. We don't. We're not biased. We're just going to tell you exactly how we feel about this team. And that's, I think, one of the things that really makes this outlet special, because Drew, Kyler also needs to bring his boosted chair to the meetings. The team will no longer provide it. That was pretty good. Everybody, if you ever meet me, you'll need a booster just to stand up and look me in the eye. So just something to remember. We greatly appreciate it, guys. If you would like and subscribe, it makes a really big difference for us. It tells everybody the work that we're doing. It helps the algorithms, and it helps expose this show and our other great shows on the network, including Dave's own Two Old Bloggers, to everybody. And this season, Dave and I are in talks of how we're going to handle pregame show. We're going to add a betting component so we can help everybody here make a little bit of extra money by placing smart bets on Minnesota Vikings games. And that is going to be coming down the pipeline. And we're going to have a lot of great content, including this week, Dave. We have the return of Vikings Happy Hour.
That we do. Purple Haze was talking about monster beers. Wednesday, I will have the beer out, and we will be drinking because Vikings Happy Hour will be open Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be really exciting to see them back. Vikings Hot Takes will be back soon. Same with In the Huddle. But you and I, Dave, the flagship holding down the network.
Not be.
Well, not at all.
Possibly. But we also have a couple guys wanting to join the network. So we're not going to be without shows. And then on Saturday, we'll have 2 shows. We're going to have the real Forno in his pregame show. And you're going to have 2 old bloggers in their pregame show. And I don't know which one's going to come first, but they are going to meet in the middle. So, like on a typical Saturday, one show handoff to the other, we are going to cover your game day, get you ready for it. Like no other network, no other fan network out there is going to do it like we do it. So, we look forward to it. Things are going to ramp up. Some of the podcasts are going to ramp up, the podcast only, and we're going to have a great time.
We're going to have an excellent time. And the best part about this is it's ramping up to hopefully a successful Viking season.
Yes.
Because life is good. And in the meantime, thank you guys very much for listening. Please keep an eye on Climbing the Pocket and all of my work as I unfortunately have to shift away from NBC Sports Edge. They are eliminating the college football department. So I have some exciting things to announce here over the next couple of weeks. Please pay attention to that. Also, please go check out the Run and Shooter, my Substack, runandshooter.substack.com. And I have stuff going up there. Every Friday I have a weekly column, and then I'll be posting stuff throughout the week, including links to everything that I publish on all my different sites. So you'll have a one-stop shop in order to check that out. Dave,
good stuff.
It is, and I'm very excited to be able to call myself full-time come Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central. It's going to be a wonderful thing. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening and watching here live on this beautiful Monday. And from Dave, myself, have a wonderful night. Skol Vikings.
Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, The Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.